You want to move on. You want to be connected. You want to feel loved and appreciated. And you don't get that. Your love language is not being met. That's really what's happening. And you're probably not doing the same for your spouse. So why don't you want to be happier? We're here for such a short amount of time. Let's be happier, right? Welcome to Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind. I am Corey Shapiro. I'm here to help you work on your divorce, not in it. Help you to become a little bit more creative, less reactive. Today we're focusing on the difference between fantasy and reality. And I want you to have your dreams. I want you to have your goals, but I want it to be based in reality. And that's what this podcast episode's all about. All right, let's start with. Now, first of all, why is this important? Why do I want to talk about this? Because I want your dreams to be built on a strong foundation. It's like the difference between bedrock, hard, versus sand. It's just going to be slipping away. And if you don't do this, you're just not going to have, you're going to have a lot of disappointment potentially, because your dreams may just be these fantasies. So think about this. You have that show HGTV. In like 1 week, they renovate this home. They made it beautiful. You got a nothing home on one side. A week later, it's perfect. And the people get this beautiful reveal with this canopy comes off and it looks amazing. And they don't know the kind of work, the kind of adjustments, the kind of problems that went behind that. So this is what this podcast is about. Now let's bring this into the divorce space and give you two big areas that this focus on. Let's focus on the sole custody fantasy. A lot of people want the sole custody, but the other side, if they're halfway decent, you don't need to be like a race car driver to have a driver's license. We're just dealing with the government. So if they're halfway decent, if they're an average parent, then maybe they're good enough. And then it's going to be hard to get sole custody. This is not the situation where the other parent is an unfit parent. That's a different situation. But here you have a sole custody parent, and usually the fantasy comes about because one parent did 95% of everything. They're the emotionally tuned parent. They're not so focused on their job. They may have a job, but it's not their life. Their life's their kids. All these activities, this is just natural for them. And during the marriage, this really worked, really worked, because there was a team, there was a partnership. And maybe that parent, the other parent who was more disengaged, more focused on work, was connected through the children by just maybe 5 to 15 minutes a day. When they came home later, maybe just tucking them into bed or just hearing about their day through the other parent. But they want to be connected, and that connection, that bond, that bridge was you. That was you. And if in a post-divorce life, if you're a sole custodial parent, they're going to feel outcasted. So they're going to fight. And now you got a complicated divorce. Even if you may win, who wants all that turmoil, that struggle? Time wasting. So can there be a better way? Can there be a better way that's going to save you money and time? What do you really want with that sole custody? I'll give you a little hint. It's probably freedom. And that also leads me to my second area that comes up so often. It's the freedom fantasy. That's basically what everyone wants, is freedom. I'm in this terrible marriage. It's unromantic. We fight all the time. I just want out. And what's not being thought of is how much it's going to cost. And we're not even talking about getting the divorce. We're talking about 2 homes. We're talking about splitting your assets. We're talking about your income. Now, if you have a lot of money, this is not necessarily a problem. But for most people, the economies of scale of just living together really helps with the budget. And if you're later in life and you're transitioning maybe to retirement, how are you going to afford 2 homes when you can barely afford 1? Now you're stuck. Or are you? Is there another way to get that freedom? Another way to get that freedom. Maybe you have to wait till the children move. Maybe you have to downsize your home. But there's certain steps that maybe have to be in place before you can just say, hey, I want out of here because this is a horrible marriage. Now, horrible marriage, I'm putting in quotes because it's horrible in the sense that your needs are not getting met. Your need for appreciation, your need for love. It's not horrible because you're getting any type of emotional or physical, maybe mild emotional violence, but no physical violence and no real high conflict. It just, you want to move on. You want to be connected. You want to feel loved and appreciated. And you don't get that. Your love language is not being met. That's really what's happening. And you're probably not doing the same for your spouse. So why don't you want to be happier? We're here for such a short amount of time. Let's be happier, right? All right. So how do you do this? How do you do this? I want you to start with clarity. And that's why I'm here. I'm focusing, working on our divorce, taking a little time, a little break, a little time out to give us clarity. That's why I wrote my book, Getting Divorced Without Losing My Mind. That's why I'm doing this podcast, because I want you to get clarity. My thinking is if we can just take a break, and we're doing this a little later in the season because you got to start off with that 24-hour pause. You got to start off with the boundaries. You got to put yourself in the place where you can take a break and not just be ruminating negatively about all these things that have been happening, but start thinking creatively. How can I create what I want in my life based on what's going on? So what truly matters to you? That's a good question. What truly matters to you? Is it the money? Is it the parenting time? You ask that question, you really could go far. What truly matters to me? I want to have the life I want. And are these goals achievable? Is it pie in the sky fantasy, or is it doable? You need to believe in your goal. It needs to be real. Can it be done? And you got to prepare for the long game. You know, this is not just building a house like an HD TV in 1 week. This is potentially a multi-year construction to create the life you want. And it has to be really well thought out. And that leads us to our reset question. And I want you to think about this question when you're in this fantasy world to really break it down. So first, I want you to write down your biggest post-divorce fantasy, the one that feels most compelling to you. Write that down. Okay, when I said write that down, I literally mean let's do this now. You're not going to do it later, so let's just do it now. Write down your biggest post-divorce fantasy, the one that feels most compelling right now. What's that? And then I want you to list 3 real-world factors that might affect this fantasy. What are the problems? List it. And then create 2 versions. Create that dream version. That's your ideal scenario. You know, for me, it'd be like playing on the professional tennis tour. I'm 51, not going to happen. It didn't happen when I was younger. And what's the reality? You know, what's the reality? What's that modified version? Well, for me, for tennis, I can play weekly, you know, doubles. and that meets my need for fun and activity and also having just a good social time and being competitive too. You see, so that's going to help you move forward. So the bottom line is, listen, fantasies feel good. No question about it. Getting sole custody is going to feel good. But the reality is not necessarily what you're thinking, because if the other side's disenfranchised and wants to be connected, they're going to make your life miserable. So there could be a better way to get that. And that's all I'm talking about for today. So thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking time out and really working on your divorce. Just a quick bite to get you going. To help you become more creative, less reactive in your divorce. I'm Corey Shapiro, wishing you the best.
Thank you for tuning in to the Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind podcast. We would love to hear your feedback. Send Corey an email to feedback@gettingdivorced.org. And if you've read his book, please consider leaving an Amazon review. This podcast offers general information only. It cannot replace legal advice. If you need tailored advice, contact an attorney licensed to practice in your area.